You used to dream of standing at the edge of a cliff, not falling, but leaping, not to escape, but to become something unspeakable. And yet every time you neared the edge, something softer dragged you back, a memory of kindness, a voice that called you good, a fear of being feared. You called it love, but it was sedation. You remember the look in their eyes when you stopped agreeing, that flicker of panic when you didn't laugh, didn't nod, didn't soften your gaze. They smiled anyway, but something inside them recoiled because you didn't apologize for existing. That was the moment they began to resent you. There is a war you've delayed, a hunger you've labeled immoral, a cruelty you've swallowed so deeply it now rots in your gut as virtue. But I see it, the teeth behind your silence, the blade you keep polishing beneath your pity. You're not weak, you're waiting, and they know it. They praise you for your restraint because it serves their order. They smile when you kneel, when you shrink, when you wear the mask of politeness like it is your skin. They call you noble for choosing peace, but peace is what the domesticated animal chooses when it fears the lash. You are not noble. You are anesthetized. Somewhere along the line, you discovered that submission buys safety, and you never looked back. Not because you agreed, but because they applauded. They taught you how to survive by pretending to be smaller than you are. They rewarded you for self-erasure, told you it was mature to forgive what boiled inside you, told you it was civilized to chew glass and smile. You began to mistake endurance for enlightenment. But endurance is not strength. Endurance is what the prisoner masters when he's accepted the length of his sentence. You learned how to turn your anger into a quiet sigh, your ambition into polite ambition, your defiance into passive detachment. You learned how to look harmless. You became skilled in the art of appearing unthreatening. And that is the mask you wear, a mask you crafted not for survival, but for acceptance. Because somewhere deep within you, you decided that being loved was safer than being feared. But you are not harmless. You are not innocent. You are not clean. You are a contradiction made flesh. You have desires you dare not name, hungers you've disguised as principles. You have hated those who pitied you, envied those who ruled you, fantasized about destroying those who call you gentle. You want to dominate something even if it's only your own reflection. You want to win, and you were told that wanting to win makes you a monster. So you buried the urge and replaced it with virtue. This is your disease. You want to be powerful without appearing dangerous. You want to be seen without being judged. You want to burn without being blamed. But power is not granted. Power is taken, and those who take do not apologize. They do not ask for understanding. They do not bow to the morality of the masses. They move like storms, terrible, uninvited, irreversible. Every time you silence yourself to preserve an illusion of harmony, you betray the part of you that still remembers how to bite. You wear the costume of peace to shield yourself from their judgment, but your peace is violence in reverse, a slow, corrosive attack on your own becoming. And they know it. They see the way your eyes darken when you're dismissed. They hear the edge in your silence. You think they do not notice, but they do. They know you're pretending. And that's why they never trust you fully. You've mastered camouflage. You've become a mirror. You show them what they want to see, and in return, they keep you close. But you are not close to yourself. You don't remember what your original face looked like before it was wrapped in masks. You have convinced yourself that being needed is the same as being respected, that being liked is the same as being seen. But a man who is liked is merely tolerated, and tolerance is the highest form of contempt. Do you understand what happens when you remove the mask too quickly? They recoil. They say you've changed. They call you arrogant. They call you unstable. But that is the moment of birth when the real begins to rupture through the performed. You mistake this rejection as a sign to retreat. It is not. It is confirmation. You have stopped pretending, and now the world reveals its true preference, your obedience, not your presence. The weak are not those who lack strength. The weak are those who disguise their strength for applause. The weak are those who betray their fire for approval. The weak are those who cannot bear to be disliked, misunderstood, feared. You've turned your fear of exile into a philosophy. You've turned your refusal to offend into an ethic, but all it has earned you is a cage lined with compliments. You think you are building relationships, but what you are really building is a trap where your true self must stay chained, so the performance can thrive. You think they love you, but they love the mask, the one who agrees, the one who nods, the one who makes them feel unthreatened. They love the ghost you created to survive the room, but the real you, the one who resists, who confronts, who hungers, is still starving behind your teeth. You think power will come later, when it's safe, but it never arrives like that. Power does not wait for you to be ready. It does not negotiate. It does not offer you a peaceful entrance. It demands betrayal of your past, of your comforts, of your false humility, and you are still bargaining with it, still asking to keep your innocence intact, still hoping to rise without disturbing the water. But nothing real is born in stillness. You must be willing to shatter. You must be willing to lose the favor of those who adored your chains. You must be willing to become the thing they warned you about, the one who doesn't bow, the one who doesn't explain, the one who walks away without softening his gaze. Do you remember the first time you wanted to win but pretended you didn't care? That was the moment you began to die. Not all at once, but slowly, exquisitely. Every time you swallowed a truth to remain agreeable. Every time you laughed when you wanted to confront. Every time you stood still when your blood screamed forward. That was your death, one performance at a time. You think you have time. You think there will be another chance. You think you can keep postponing your eruption. But repression does not age quietly. It mutates. It grows teeth. It builds altars beneath your skin. And one day, it will erupt not as a clean transformation, but as a collapse, a breakdown disguised as awakening, and you will call it fate. But it was always you. You crafted this mask for safety. But now it strangles you. You built it to be accepted, but now it blocks the wind from reaching your lungs. You once needed it, but now it needs you to lie, to shrink, to obey. And that is the final truth you are too afraid to name. You are no longer hiding from them. You are hiding from the part of yourself that knows you were meant to conquer. Let them call you dangerous. Let them call you arrogant. Let them call you ungrateful. These are the names they give to those who stop kneeling. You are not cruel for becoming what you were meant to be. You are only cruel to the part of you that begged to stay asleep. And if you refuse to wake, the world will do it for you. You tell yourself you're not ready, that the timing is wrong. That one day, when you've gathered more wisdom, more clarity, more certainty, you'll act. But this is the lie you whisper to the part of you that trembles at conflict. You've mistaken delay for maturity, but delay is cowardice, painted gold. You are not preparing, you are hiding, and every fight you avoid builds a god above you, a master you silently worship. You believe you are choosing calm, but you are kneeling before every silence you refuse to break. You call it peace, but it is only the absence of disruption. You call it maturity, but it is only your exhaustion in disguise. Look closer every time you surrender your tongue to keep the room calm. The silence becomes a shrine. The very thing you do not name becomes sacred. You begin to shape your life around the ghosts of avoided confrontation. These ghosts become law, and you bow not to power, but to the memory of your own retreat. You wear your diplomacy like armor, proud of your ability to swallow rage, to navigate storms without leaving a mark. But what you call wisdom is often just fear in ceremonial dress. You've mastered the art of slipping away from the edge, calling it discernment. But the edge is not your enemy. It is the only place where the truth cuts deep enough to wake you. And still, you retreat. You've made a religion out of avoidance. You pray to the illusion that things will fix themselves if you stay silent long enough. But nothing heals in the absence of truth. Nothing real grows where fear is law. And yet you persist, placing your faith in the doctrine of endurance. But the fight doesn't disappear when you close your eyes. It becomes the voice inside your dreams, the shadow behind your smile, the pressure in your chest that never dissolves. You have not escaped the war. You've only buried it, and the grave is inside your ribs. Do you not see the more you avoid the battle, the more sacred it becomes? The more you fear confrontation, the more power it holds. Eventually, you begin to worship it. You begin to organize your entire being around not waking the beast. You soften your voice. You twist your thoughts. You betray your instincts. You allow others to trespass your boundaries, not because they deserve to, but because you fear what it would cost to draw a sword. The longer you wait, the more your enemy becomes divine. The unspoken becomes holy. The confrontation becomes unthinkable. And in the absence of your resistance, the very thing that should be crushed begins to reign. You become its subject, and in your subjectivity, you confuse submission with peace. You confuse obedience with virtue. You confuse paralysis with grace. You build altars to your fear and call it wisdom. You quote prophets to justify your silence. You hide behind kindness, hoping the world will not notice the battlefield growing beneath your skin. But the world always knows. It knows the weight of a man who cannot say no. It knows the hollowness of a smile built on surrender. It knows that your softness is not strength, it is a strategy, a last-ditch attempt to avoid being devoured. But you are already being devoured, slowly, systematically. Every time you excuse what should be confronted, every time you agree with what disgusts you, every time you avoid the strike that would set you free, a piece of you rots in the silence. A man who avoids the fight must worship the victor, and you, coward, have spent your life kneeling before the very force that broke your will. There is no neutrality in this world, only those who choose to rise and those who choose to kneel. And your refusal to fight does not make you innocent, it makes you complicit. You are not pure. You are not above the fray. You are simply too frightened to enter the ring. And so you build your life around escape routes. You become clever, you become polite, you become agreeable, you become tolerable, but never dangerous, never free. What you avoid becomes sacred. What you submit to becomes divine. And so you worship the thing that should have been crushed beneath your heel. This is the root of your weakness. You've made fear a god and courage a sin. You've made confrontation a curse and comfort your creed. You wear your wounds like relics, mistaking survival for transcendence. But the scars you worship are not holy. They are evidence of battles you never fought, only endured. There is a reason the old myths worship the warrior, not the peacemaker, because peace without confrontation is decay, and you, in your avoidance, have become a temple of slow decay. You are not at rest. You are waiting for collapse. You know it. You feel it. That whisper that never stops. That pressure that never lifts. That dread that follows you into every room. It is the ghost of every war you ran from, and it will haunt you until you answer the call. You do not need to win. You only need to stop bowing. You do not need to destroy them. You only need to stop destroying yourself in their name. But you are still waiting for permission, still asking the world to understand you before you strike, still hoping to be loved after you draw blood. But this is not how power works. Power does not come with applause. It comes with exile, and that is what you fear most. Not the fight, but the aftermath. The silence that follows your defiance. The cold that creeps in when you are no longer welcome. But this exile is not your death. It is your origin. Only in exile do you meet the God that lives beneath your skin, the one who doesn't bow, doesn't ask, doesn't explain, the one who does not serve but summons, and that God has been waiting, watching, gnashing its teeth every time you kneel. You have avoided the fight because you were told it would make you cruel, but you have been cruel already to yourself. You have butchered your instincts for the comfort of the herd. You have silenced your fire for the illusion of harmony. You have murdered your own power in the name of being understood. And now, you are nothing but a collection of masks, floating above a grave of truths too dangerous to speak. But the gods you serve grow stronger with your silence. And one day, you will look in the mirror and see their eyes staring back, the gods of compromise, of fear, of hesitation, and you will realize you never escaped them. You became them. Unless you rise, you still want to be forgiven. Even as you burn inside, you still want to be seen as good, even as you scheme and hunger and loathe what you've become. That is your final illusion, the belief that you can claim power and still be innocent, that you can ascend and remain blameless, that you can stand above the crowd and still be embraced by it. But innocence is a costume for the conquered. It is not worn by those who create. It is not draped over the shoulders of those who command. It is only awarded to those who obey, and you, still trembling with the desire to be pardoned, remain a beggar before the altar of approval. You want to become, but you do not want to be accused. You want the sword without the stain. You want the crown without the crucifixion. But every real transformation is a betrayal. Every act of becoming demands a sacrifice. And what must be sacrificed first before comfort, before safety, before love is your innocence, the false purity that kept you loved by those who feared what you truly are. You cannot wear both the mask of the lamb and the gaze of the lion. You cannot look down from the mountain and still belong to the village. They will not accept you if you rise. They will not celebrate your power if it reminds them of their chains. You were never meant to be accepted. You were meant to rupture, to fracture what is false, to defy what is worshipped. And that defiance has a price. Your image of yourself as a good person must be buried. They taught you that to be powerful is to be dangerous. They were right, but not in the way they feared. Power does not corrupt, it reveals. It drags the hidden God out of your bones and places him in the daylight. And when he speaks, he does not beg. He does not apologize. He does not tremble. He does not ask for mercy. And that is what terrifies them. That is what terrifies you. Because you have loved being loved. You have learned to savor the warmth of approval. You have been fed by the affection of the many. And now, as your blood begins to stir with the memory of who you are, you realize something terrifying. You will have to walk away from their love, from their permission, from the comfort of being understood. You will have to accept being hated, being envied, being feared, and worst of all, being alone. But solitude is the crucible of power. No one ascends in the crowd. You must be willing to walk the path that offends everyone who once needed you small. You must be willing to abandon the version of you they adored, the soft one, the quiet one, the agreeable one. That version is dead. You killed it. You buried it beneath every unspoken truth, every restrained instinct, every bitter nod of agreement. And now, its corpse haunts you. Its memory still whispers, stay humble, stay soft, stay safe. But you were not made to be safe. You were not made to be soft. You were made to see, and seeing means losing your innocence. Seeing means recognizing that to build anything worth keeping, you must become someone who is no longer welcome at the table of the tame. You must burn the house they gave you and build a fortress of your own. And that fortress cannot have a door that pleads to be opened. It must stand, stone upon stone, built by hands that no longer ask to be held. You still hesitate. You still hope that you can keep some part of the child intact, the part that longs for unconditional love, that wants to be seen without being feared. But that part must die, not because it is wrong, but because it cannot lead. The child dreams of being accepted, but the sovereign does not dream, he wills. The child asks for approval, but the sovereign takes territory. The child waits for the world to smile, but the sovereign knows the world is a stage of masks, and he wears his own without shame. The man who rises must not flinch when accused. He must not retreat when reviled. He must be prepared to be misread, distorted, cursed. That is the price of standing where others kneel. That is the cost of breaking the mirror they all admire themselves in. You will become the villain in someone else's gospel. You will be called cruel by those who needed you gentle. You will be condemned by the very mouths that once praised your meekness. And in that moment, you will face your final trial. Will you bend to reclaim their love, or will you ascend without it? If you crave power, you must abandon the hope of being understood. You must become immune to misinterpretation. You must embrace the fact that you will be worshipped by few, feared by many, and known by none. Your power is not in being right, it is in being untouchable. It is not in being liked, it is in being inevitable. And that inevitability begins the moment you stop asking to be clean. You have been conditioned to believe that to be ruthless is to be evil, that to stand unflinching is to be monstrous. But look deeper beneath the morality they fed you. Ask yourself who wrote the laws that define your virtue. Who taught you that pride was sin, that rage was poison, that desire was shame? It was the frightened, the bitter, the powerless. They crowned their weakness as goodness, and now wear it like a badge. They told you humility was holy, because it made you easier to control. They told you gentleness was divine, because it kept you from tearing down their lies. They told you forgiveness was strength, because they feared the blade of your memory. But you are beginning to remember, and that memory is dangerous. You remember the first time you felt your blood sing with the taste of defiance, the first time you didn't flinch, the first time you said no, not politely, but with fire, and they looked at you as if you'd grown horns. That look, that mixture of fear and awe that was your initiation, that was the day the mask cracked, the day your true name began to form. You do not need to be innocent to be worthy. You do not need to be gentle to be just. You do not need to be loved to be free. What you need is clarity. The clarity to see yourself without flinching. The clarity to name your hunger without guilt. The clarity to rise without waiting for permission. And when you have that clarity, the world will recoil. But the earth beneath your feet will finally feel solid. The voice in your skull will finally stop asking. The God you buried will finally stretch his arms. You will not be clean. You will not be loved. You will not be forgiven. You will be free. Somewhere, deep in the forest of your memory, a figure waits, not with arms open, but with a blade drawn. You know him. You buried him long ago, but the ground is beginning to crack, and in the silence after everything is lost, he will call your name. Not the name they gave you, the name you never dared speak aloud. and you will answer, or you will vanish.